In a place filled with lowlifes, criminals, murderers, and monsters, there was one man with a sympathetic heart. At least when it came to Jabba's pet Rancor. This transmission is going to dig into the full story of Malakili, the Rancor handler of Jabba's palace in the age of the Galactic Empire. This man is proof that even in the darkest gutters of the galaxy, compassion can endure. Born on Corellia, a world known for churning out great starships and talented pilots to fly them, Malakili was different from his people from the start. He had no love, skills, or even desire to master traveling amongst the stars. His talents and interests were in understanding and taming creatures the majority of the galaxy saw as monsters. These skills served him well, but also made him the target of an unexpected organization, the Circus Horrificus. They captured Malakili and tasked him with wrangling their beasts. He would go on to survive a stunning 5 years with the circus without loss of life or even limb. Instead of beating the creatures into submission, Malakili spoke to them in a soothing way. He rewarded them with foods tailored to them and exercised patience in all of his doings. The Circus Horrificus was a sadistic traveling show that was relatively popular in the days leading up to the Clone Wars. An unidentified Twi'lek, known only as the Ringmaster, oversaw the traveling show that would smuggle dangerous and more often than not illegal to own animals and pit them in combat against gladiators, whether they were willing or not. In 32 BBY, Mace Windu and his Padawan, Depa Billaba, exposes the circus smuggling act dogs and got that shut down. The circus took a hit, but since its clientele were not the most upstanding citizens of the galaxy, it persisted. Jumping to 22 BBY, one of their beasts, an Arquette, escaped and killed 12 spectators. This caused the circus to fade into obscurity. The Ringmaster would go on to sell Malakili to Jabba the Hutt as a slave, or more specifically, to Bib Fortuna, Jabba's majordomo. Either way, Malakili was the property of Jabba, and his sole role was to tend to the Rancor that Jabba kept locked up under his throne room. The animal was a gift from Bib Fortuna in a play to win Jabba's favor and become his right-hand man. The play worked and Fortuna got the job. Not only that, but Fortuna managed the situation so that his only competitor for said job would be the first meal that the Rancor would have in Jabba's palace. The Rancor was commonly called Patisa, which served as its name but is also the Huttese word for friend. I doubt that Jabba used that word when referring to the Rancor or anything or anyone else for that matter. Jabba did not care for the creature beyond watching it fight other dangerous animals and eating those who displeased him. He constantly set up increasingly dangerous scenarios for the Rancor that was victorious the vast majority of the time, but it took abuse and got injured along the way. Malakili slowly won the Rancor's trust by tending to its wounds and sourcing quality food for it. If you're getting value or entertainment out of any of my transmissions, it would mean a lot if you would join the Remnant and subscribe. The others who worked in the bowels of Jabba's palace developed a strange sort of respect and jealousy for Malakili because of his connection with the massive Rancor. They wanted to get close and siphon off some of the feeling of its power and possibly win themselves some favor with Jabba. Malakili wanted to free himself. More importantly, he wanted to free the animal. Malakili had been worried about his own life since he was forced under Jabba's roof. Jabba had a well-earned reputation for disposing of those who displeased or even slightly bored him. The urgency for his own life was actually put aside when it came to the life of the Rancor. He makes an agreement with Lady Valerian, a crime lord who rivaled Jabba's strength, and arranges transport for himself and the Rancor to disappear onto a sparsely populated planet where they could vanish into obscurity and the Rancor would be free. Malakili promised information for the rival crime syndicate, but Valerian was really sold on it just to stick a finger into the eye of the mighty Hutt. Another one of Jabba's underlings, one who was jealous of Malakili's connection with the Rancor, caught wind of parts of this plan and threatened to turn him into the Hutt. Malakili kills the man, but he had a very simple way to dispose of the body. He just simply fed it to the Rancor. The very narrow escape window was scheduled for the very day that Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker would walk into Jabba's palace to barter for Han Solo's life. The palace had received quite a few strange visitors in the days leading up to this one, but Malakili had no mind for figuring how it all connected. His only focus was in getting the Rancor out of harm's way. Unfortunately for both the Rancor and Malakili, Jabba dropped the Jedi into the pit. He and his cronies watched and cheered, thinking that the slight man would be easy prey for the hungry beast. The Jedi lured the Rancor into an impromptu trap and kills it in self-defense. Malakili was beside himself. His assistant, Garan, tries to comfort the man, but deep inside Garan was relieved that he didn't have to deal with the massive creature ever again. Despite his sorrow, I would argue that Malakili's story ends on a happy note. Jabba was killed very soon after, which meant all of those who were stuck working for the Hutt were freed. Malakili would take advantage of the chaos and free one of the very few beings that he could call a friend, Jabba's cook, Porcellus, from the cells beneath the palace, and the two would venture into Mos Eisley to start a new chapter in their lives. They would go on to open a restaurant called the Crystal Moon, and they used the proceeds stolen from Jabba's palace after Jabba's death as their startup capital. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Today's video is sponsored by me. Imperial Remnant now has a merch store, and it's not just designed specific to the channel. I'm working with a couple talented artists to bring you unique Star Wars themed designs. Check out the link in the description. Alright, back to the lore. For a character with no dialogue and very little screen time, Malakili's behind-the-scenes story is an interesting one. George Lucas had the idea for the character in the first place. He thought that it was a nice idea to have someone actually care for the Rancor, even though it was created to be a terrifying monster. He was portrayed by Paul Brook on screen, and Ernie Fossilius did the voiceover for the sobbing. Neither performer is credited in the movie. I always took this bit of the scene to be a gag when I was growing up, something to cut the tension from the exciting battle that just happened. Upon the movie's release, famed movie critic Roger Ebert pointed out the Rancor Keeper's small performance being one of many examples that elevated the Star Wars movies into something more than just a surface-level space opera. Malakili was first named in the West End Games Star Wars role-playing game. I cannot believe how much that company created for the Star Wars universe. The bulk of his story, certainly the bulk of this transmission, is sourced from the Legends anthology book Tales from Jabba's Palace. The name was confirmed to be canon in 2013's Force Collection mobile game. Though the game predates the Lucasfilm buyout and the definitive split between the expanded universe and canon, Leland Chan of the Lucasfilm Story Group confirms that the game was kept up to date with canon. Malakili would go on to appear in other mobile games and novels. Another shocking fact that I stumbled across was prolific Star Wars writer Chuck Wendig was interested in continuing Malakili's story specifically. While he did not write a story with this bit player from Return of the Jedi as the lead, he was included in the Aftermath Life Debt and Aftermath Empire's End. These books are second and third installments in the Aftermath Trilogy, which is a must-read for those who are looking to keep up with the current canon novels. Check out this transmission next to dive into more obscure characters from Star Wars lore.